All right, folks, we're in chapter 38. Chapter 38 in one word, kavana, intent. Just to recap, what we learned till chapter 38 was about the importance of action, about the act of doing a mitzvah. So much so that if you contemplate, could you imagine? You think about the greatness of God, God's presence in your life, God's presence in the world, and it's very palpable and real for you. And in your mind, you're saying, Shema Yisrael, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, right? You're saying that in your head over and over and over, and it's like not just in your head, it's in your heart, and it reverberates throughout your being. You don't fulfill the mitzvah of saying Shema. You don't have the complete unity and oneness with God, even though you might be feeling and experiencing something, and it might even be real. Let's say it's even real. You need to verbalize the Shema. You need to verbalize your prayers. Even the Amidah, we call it the silent prayer, but it still needs to be verbalized. Silent in the sense that others shouldn't hear, but I need to be able, that there's a breath that comes out of my mouth, that there's a verbalization of the prayers. Otherwise, we don't fulfill the mitzvah. Even though I had this great intense meditation about the oneness of God, you don't fulfill the mitzvah. Why? Because, as we explained, the act engages the animal soul in the body, and through that act of verbalization, or for that matter, every other act that we do in Torah is, in the mitzvahs that we do, as putting on physical tefillin, and all the other acts of mitzvahs, we are attached to and one with God through that act. So if we do the act without the intention, we're connected. And we have the intention without the act, we're not connected. We have to do the act. So the essence of the mitzvah is the act. Whether the act is a physical action of putting on tefillin, and it could even be mindlessly, right? Or it's the verbalization of saying the Shema, which there you can't be mindless. You need to be aware of what you're saying, in even though in that one phrase at least, but in the rest of the Shema, if you say it and you're not mindful, you still fulfill the mitzvah. So that's what we learned till the end of chapter 37. This chapter now, we come and say, well, that's very true. However, there's always, in Jewish teachings, a little twist to things. And what is that twist? The Alter Rebbe says that when you say a prayer without intent, it's like a body without a soul. So even though the body of the mitzvah you have, and you've fulfilled the obligation and you have attached yourself to God, but it is like a body without a soul. Now, what does that mean exactly? A body without a soul. So, in simple level, it means it's lifeless. But the Alter Rebbe goes and to explain this idea in Chabad, that we understand. So he explains like this. Soul creatures, like our souls above, or let's say angels, right? And physical beings, body creatures of this world, body creatures meaning, let's just take the simple thing, a rock, right? That's a body, and we'll get more in details in this world shortly. So the Alter Rebbe says like this. This is a bit abstract. Hopefully I'll bring across the idea clearly. God, who is the animator and the creator of something, of everything, whether it's a spiritual being or a physical thing, again, spiritual being like a soul, or let's say an angel. Let's use an angel, right? Which God creates, or a stone, a rock, in this world, both equally conceal the presence of God. meaning the essence of God is concealed from both because they're created beings. And since they're created beings, something from nothing, they equally conceal the light of the countenance of God. There, no difference. God is hidden. Means to say like this, to give a metaphor. Let's say a very strong light from the sun, and you put a curtain. That curtain, the light that comes on the other side, veils the sunlight. It's not the same. So in that respect, there is not a distinction, because ultimately, whatever God creates veils on the essence of God himself. Now, of course, not from God's perspective, but we're talking about from creation's perspective. So there's an equal veil on, right? And what is that veil? Is the power of klipas noiga. Klipas noiga is the shell that hides on, just like the shell of a fruit, hides the fruit, conceals the fruit. So likewise, this curtain is like that shell that hides on God's essential presence. Equally. Now, ultimately, it has to do that in order that the thing should exist. Otherwise, if God didn't conceal, then whatever God creates would not exist. So we understand that. However, that being said, there's still a difference in the power of the illumination of God's creative force between different things, between a stone and a spiritual being, or a stone and a human being, right? That difference is the illumination. So to give a metaphor for that, so we have a curtain, right, that separates from the creative power, from God and the creative power of God, that now whatever God creates, be it spiritual, be it physical, conceals on him. Now, after that light, let's say you took a board, this is a metaphor, you took a board and you made a big hole or a small hole. So the amount of illumination that comes through from that curtain, now if you have a big hole, so it's going to be a lot more of an illumination. If you have a small little hole, obviously the amount is much less. What is that distinction? It's in different created things. So when we're speaking about a spiritual being, the amount of illumination is much greater. The hole is bigger. And therefore, that's why spiritual beings can recognize their source, that there is a source of godliness. But when the hole in that is so minuscule, that the light that comes through is so little, and there we can understand now physical created creatures. Why are they inanimate? Why is something of a spiritual nature, not a physical, inanimate, lifeless, so to speak, stone? Is because the reduced light. And therefore, so to put that into two different dimensions, physical things and soul things. So the created, the constriction, the restriction of the light that creates now the inanimate. Why is it inanimate? Because the light is so reduced. It's inanimate, it's so much so that it can't even be vegetation that it is able to grow. Or vegetation, so as then becomes the light the whole is a bit bigger. When it comes to the animal kingdom, the light is even greater. I mean, the whole is bigger, and therefore the light that comes through is greater. And then for the human, it is even greater. So we have 4 levels of created beings: inanimate, vegetation, animal, and human. And why do we have those 4 levels? It's because who creates them? God. What name of God? Yud-Keh Vav-Keh, the Tetragrammaton, the essential name of God, which is the source of the power of creation, something from nothing. And that name has 4 letters to it. Yud, and a Hey, and a Vav, and a Hey. The Yud is the essential power of creating humans. The first Hey is animals. The Vav is vegetation. And the latter Hey is inanimate. That's what it creates. So, equally, whether it's a human being or a rock, an inanimate, equally veils the presence of God. When I say here the presence of God, I don't mean, well, if you look at a human being, or you look, the child is born, the miracle of life, that's a consequence of what we're seeing. I think when you just look at a human, you don't say, oh, God, that's God in a human. No, it's a human. You think about it, oh, yes, there's the power of God in human. The power of God in inanimate, in a stone. Yes. In other words, we're talking about what is, God is concealed. You got to think about it. You got to come to, so much so that people even deny, right? So it's equally concealing whether it's in a human or in a stone. However, that being said, so that's the curtain. But how much light, how big is the hole in the wood that is allowing now after the curtain that the light that goes through that wood that has a hole in it? Well, if it's very little, then as a result, what it's creating is something that is illuminated less with the divine light of God that is the creative power. And that's why it makes it inanimate. And when it's a human, the light is so much greater, right? Because the whole, so to speak, and that's just a metaphor for us to appreciate this idea. So what comes out of this is there's a much greater illumination in the creatures that God creates that has soul to them, animal, human, as opposed to inanimate and vegetation. This brings out the idea, and which we'll discuss more because it's just in the middle of the thought, that when you do a mitzvah just, shall we say, without intent, without kavanah, without soulfulness. So it's like the rock, and even that we'll see there's different levels, which we'll get into, meaning that even though you've attached yourself to God, but it's not illuminated, very little illumination. But if you do the mitzvah with the intent, with awareness, concentration, focus, you're engaged in it, then it becomes a mitzvah that's illuminated, more illuminated mitzvah. And as a result, is the mitzvah a mitzvah without that illumination? Yes. You fulfilled the command. You put on your tefillin, but maybe you did it out of rote. You gave charity. And, you did it mindlessly. How often do we just take money and mindlessly give? Did we fulfill the mitzvah? Are we attached to God in that moment? Absolutely. However, it's not an illuminated mitzvah. When we are aware of what it means that I'm giving something that I've worked hard for and giving something that I could buy my own well-being, and I'm doing with this to do what's tzedek, what's righteous, what is the appropriate thing, what God wants, what he needs from me, and I understand how this brings healing to the world, and I understand how this brings the final redemption to the world, and all these things that I have an awareness of. Then when I'm doing that mitzvah, it's illuminated. That mitzvah is illuminated. I'm illuminated through that. That's what we're talking about. And therefore, when you say the Shema, or your blessings, or your prayers, with kavana, with intent, with mindfulness, with being present in the words that you're saying, then it's an illuminated prayer. Is the prayer a prayer without that? Yes. Is it illuminated? No. This is illuminated. Powerful idea. So what does that mean for us today? In our situation, okay, we understand that what it means for prayer. We understand that when you put on your tefillin. We understand that when we give charity. We just explained. What does that mean for us in isolation? So we could go through the movements and the motions of being in isolation because, that's what we got to do. Just like I got to say my prayers, and just like I got to put on my tefillin, I got to give charity and so on, Or we could be mindful of how this is actually a blessing, maybe a blessing in disguise, or maybe a revealed blessing. And therefore, if I have intent that this is indeed a revealed blessing, then I will meditate on that blessing that I have in what I am seemingly in isolation, and then my isolation will be illuminated rather than just a ball and chain. And I'm itching to get out. I haven't been to a restaurant. I haven't gone to see my friends. You'll be illuminated in your place. Okay, how we got to do that is with every mitzvah. That's the secret. The secret is, engage in mitzvahs in your isolation and do it in an illuminated way. So, I got to give a thumbs up to in here at Chabad Zichron Gedeshim, led by our Pesach and the others who join us. We have a minyan every day on Zoom. As a matter of fact, if you'd like to join, maybe I'll give you the, if you'd like to join, private message me. And can give you that you can be part of davening. It's a bit lengthier than usual. We have more time. Every word is being said carefully, illuminated. And that's what gives then a foundation for your day, that the other mitzvahs that you do during the day can also be illuminated. That's where we're at. That's what kavana means. It means, we can go through the day, do the things that we do, and they're good, but they're not illuminated. Kavana, the intent is to do the mitzvah in an illuminated way. More on this to come. All right, folks, any questions, any comments? Let us say hello to Ricardo. Shavua Tov to you in Florida. Ariel, shalom from wherever you are. Let us know. Linda Yehudit from Vermont. Oh, Vernon, Connecticut. I'm sorry, not Vermont. Leslie from Salisbury, North Carolina. Good morning. Israel from Finland. Oh, all right. Thank you for joining. Pat, good morning from Lita. Shalom. Carlos from, I don't know, let me know. Alfred from Frankfurt. All right, shalom. Charlotte from South Africa, or George. I'm sorry. George from South Africa. All right, beautiful. Sasha, thank you for joining. Florence from Montreal. All right. Very nice. Good morning. Pat from Alabama. Evid from Manila in the Philippines. Laila Tov, good night to you. Yes. Sheila from South Africa. All right, wonderful. Carlos, no, from Brazil. Yes. Yohanan from Long Beach, California. Thank you for joining. Alice from Baltimore. Good morning. Stephanie from Bloomington, Illinois. Good morning. Irina from the Ukraine. Shalom. Karen from LA. Shavua Tov. And Clem from Brisbane. Thank you for joining. I can't make that out. Nitin from Canada. All right, fellow Canadian. Rick is asking a question, do we seek a balance between intent and action? I'm not exactly certain what you mean by balance. You got to do both. Absolutely. So the action we for sure have to do, right? Do you have to give charity even if you don't feel like it? Yes. Even if you're not in the mood and you're not there in the moment? Yes. Do you have to pray even if you don't feel like it? You have to make the blessing on the, an apple in front of you. Do you have to make a blessing? Yes. Maybe you're going to do it mindlessly. Well, you got to do that better than not doing it. Absolutely. So I'm not certain what you mean by the balance. We need both, absolutely, if that's what you mean by balance. Jonette, shalom from California. Mark from Santa Rosa, California. Thank you for joining. Sond from India. I don't know if I got that right. Thank you. Mikisiwa, I'm sure I got that wrong. Susan, thank you, Teo. All right, thank you, everybody, for the thank yous. So Shelley from Fredericton, New Brunswick. Okay, a fellow Canadian. Yes, Susan is saying we should pray that everyone be healthy. Absolutely. Absolutely. Say chapter 20 in Psalms. We say that at the end of our service every day. Jessica from Southwest Florida. Bianca from London. Welcome, Jenna. Good morning. Susan Shavuot from Florida. Tammy from Hollywood, Florida. Tatiana from New York. And Jewish Life Experience from Rome. All right. Wonderful. All right, folks. Sharing is caring. A reminder, also the 1 minute Tanya that you can get on Instagram, on Twitter, or LinkedIn. Stay tuned for that. You can also, we're going to be starting something that whoever wants to get on board, if you want to message me, private message me from the messenger, let me know your email so we can provide you for more information. connections. I'll let you know some of the things that are happening. That will be for those who want more. But private message me your email would be wonderful if you'd like. And also, at the same time, if anybody wants to join our daily prayers, they're at 8. Well, today was 9 a.m. On Sunday. During the week, Monday through Friday, it's at 8 a.m. So if you're interested, I can connect you that way too. All right, folks. A lot to think about, to live with for the day, for the week, and of course more to come. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chap, again, my home in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Have a wonderful day, a Shavua Tov, a good Tavach, good week. Stay healthy, keep safe, stay strong, and think good. It will be good.